Praises to the Most High Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, double honors to the elders and apostles, Jemas Ruwa, Shalom for elect, Shabbat Shalom. I'm going to start with this scripture, Judges 18:7. Then the 5 men departed and came to Laish, and saw the people that were therein, how they dwelt careless, after the manner of the Zidonians, quiet and secure, and there was no magistrate in the land that might put them to shame in anything. And they were far from the Sidonians, and had no business with any man. And these were when the Danites, I believe, they went to Micah and took his priest, who was a Levite, who was dwelling in the tribe of Judah. But it was just to say, as things kind of proceed in this world, people are gonna see that there's no law and order, so they're gonna take things into their own house, into their own hands. I mean, if we look into the definition of a magistrate, I didn't even know this, is a civil officer who administers the law, especially one who conducts a court that deals with minor offences and holds preliminary hearings for more serious ones. And I know in the UK specifically, a crown court deals with much more, serious offences, and they can give you longer sentences. But basically, as time goes on and as this society continues to crumble, people are actually going to realize it's a very lawless society. It's not governed by diplomacy, like they say. Let's look in the diplomacy. The profession, activity, or skill of managing international relations, especially typical by countries' representatives abroad, the art of dealing with people in a sensitive and tactful way. Now, it almost, it almost suggests that diplomacy is really about getting the consensus from the people and making a judgment based on a majority ruling, or what the majority of people want. But what does it say? Diplomacy is the art and science of maintaining peaceful relations between nation groups or individuals. Often diplomacy refers to the representatives of different groups discussing such issues as conflict, trade, the environment, technology, or security. People who practice diplomacy are called diplomats. Now, the UK, Europe, they claim to be, a diplomatic nation, but here I believe the French, they made a ruling to increase, the pension age from 62 to 64, and 89% of the French people voted against it. Now, a lot of people, in society, they work basically, menial jobs, which is laborious jobs, if I'm saying that correctly. So they're very physically demanding jobs. So no one wants to be doing that when you're getting up in age. These politicians, they don't do physically demanding jobs. They can say it's mentally stressful, but that's debatable. So they're making all these laws, and these people, 89% of the French people, have actually voted against this law, and he's pushed it through anyway, which shows it's not the a diplomatic state. Is more dystopian and more tyrannical, because he's basically, and I was reading the comments, and somebody made a comment. Basically, it says it doesn't matter if you support the reform or not. The problem is using executive powers to bypass the democratic process. So it just shows you that he really don't care. These people don't care at all about their own people, and I believe he made a comment as far as where is it? There was a comment here that Macron, which is the president in France, answered to the 89% of people opposing his reform by saying the protests are not legitimate, the parliament is. So he's basically saying, the parliament, which is made up of a very few or very small amount of people, are more legitimate than the actual people that they are governing, even though they're supposed to answer to the will of the people. So, towards these end days, Esau's pretty much bearing his fangs. He doesn't even care at this point, which, the scriptures go into him coming down with great wrath, because you know, he's gonna show he don't care. You know, he pretends he cares and he's diplomatic, but clearly his actions say another thing.
Protests have been taking place in various French cities after the president, Emmanuel Macron, used controversial executive powers to push through a pension reform without a vote in parliament. Mr. Macron is due to give a rare TV interview later. He's facing a political crisis less than a year after his re-election for a second term. Sofia Betitsa reports.
There's an outcry in France. In the past week, more than 1,500 protests have taken place all over the country. This was Place de la République in Paris last night. Some protests turned violent. Police clashed with demonstrators, and hundreds were arrested. This all happened after President Macron used controversial executive powers last week to push through his deeply unpopular pension reform. This means that the retirement age in France will now be raised from 62 to 64.
I think that today the Fifth Republic is showing its true face, which is that of a regime that is not democratic, since the president can decide to pass a law that is rejected by 90% of French people.
To think that all those people who are already in really trying jobs will have to keep going until they are 64 is not right. They just see people as profits.
Well, Macron never listened to us, so now this is war. I think that at one point he won't have a choice. He will have to withdraw his reform.
But President Macron doesn't seem to have any intention of backing down. He said there would be no government reshuffle, no fresh elections, and no referendum on his pension reform. And after a week of not being seen in public, today he will give a rare TV interview. His hope will be to use the interview to calm things down and put an end to the protests. But that's easier said than done. Macron is facing his most serious challenge since the Yellow Vest riots 4 years ago. And with more strikes planned for Thursday, the anger that many French people feel is not going away. Sofia Betitsa, BBC News.
You see these little silly jakes there. Let's I actually want to find out what his name is. President, because so many different, Emmanuel Macron. You goddamn Edomite. Well, you know how it is, but these people, they really feel like, you know, that they have a say in how things are run. You know, now they're being treated like Jake. You know, they don't like it, but you were more than happy to watch Jake's ass get kicked for hundreds of years. And now you're realizing that, you know, because you didn't speak up for them, is now coming on to you, which just shows how base this man is, you know. Who is evil to himself, to whom will he be good? And, you know, the term carpetbagger, you know, I saw it I was watching one video and he used the term carpetbagger. And when I looked it up, he was a political candidate who seeks election in an area where they have no local connections. A person who becomes a member of a mutually owned building society or insurance company in order to gain financially in the event of the organization demutualizing. Butchered that. But anyway, it's basically a person who pretends to be, you know, for you, when really and truly he has no interest in you know what your goals are. And that's what these politicians are. Essentially, they don't care about the working class. They don't even care about the middle class. You know, all they care about is maintaining that social order where you have an upper class, you know, and everybody else is below them. So there's going to be an extreme variable as far as the rich and the poor are concerned. There's not going to be any middle ground. There's not going to be any buffer class. You know, it's just going to be super rich and super poor. And by them doing all of these reforms, they're essentially pushing everybody, you know, into the poor category, which is probably what, 90% of people, because they don't even care about their own people. So, you know, it is where they don't even care about the upper class. You know, they stab each other in the back all the time. This is Mika 2, 1. Woe to them that devise iniquity, and iniquity is immorality. Let's get that word, iniquity. Immoral or grossly unfair behavior. So it's just completely unfair to the people that they're governing. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand. And he basically just said, the parliament has more authority than the people. The protests are illegitimate. Parliament is legitimate. So we can basically do whatever we want, and you can't do nothing. Shut up and take it. And they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. So here it is, you're working. You don't even have any autonomy to your own family. They can literally come into people's homes and take your children, keep you away from your children. They covet your labor to the point where they extract as much taxes from you as possible, and you're left with nothing, and he thinks it's okay. Because essentially making people work for an extra 2 years is stealing your labor. You pay all that time, you pay into your little pension pot or whatever, and you think you're going to get to retire at age of 62. This man's saying, no, you're going to have to work an extra 2 years. And that's a long time when you're up in there in age, especially with these jobs that treat you like crap. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, against this family do I devise an evil from which ye shall not remove your necks, neither shall ye go haughtily. For this time is evil, in that they shall one take up a parable against you, and lament with a doleful lamentation, and say, we be utterly spoiled. Ye have changed a portion of my people. Now have you removed it from me. Turning away, ye have divided our fields. Therefore thou shalt have none that shall cast a cord by lot in the congregation of the Lord. So you just see everybody's being spoiled right now, and then they're gonna push the people into the corner. And then when this war comes, there's going to be a great, demoralization in Babylon. And personally, I can't wait for it, man. Psalms 94:20, shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by a law. And then when you say, you live by democratic rule, and you basically don't take, the majority consensus into consideration when you're making these laws, you're basically saying it's not a democratic party. My man's moving like he's Putin and that. Putin be out here getting people caps that's trying to go against him. It's tyranny, But these people pretend that, they're democratic and they care about the people that they govern. They couldn't give two hoots, man, because a lot of these laws, these people don't even agree with them, but they just go along with it anyway. Like I said, I think I mentioned earlier, but it was one of those videos where I think the mic went off. But there was this man who's like a family lawyer I was speaking to, and he said essentially he doesn't really care about the law. He said, I know other people are fighting to get the law reformed, but, it's not my fight. I don't really care. And then he made a note that he was going to go and deal with his kids or see his kids. So because it's not personally affecting him, he doesn't care. And that's how these people are. Because it doesn't personally affect them, they don't care how it affects other people, until it comes a point where society collapses and people are trying to bash your brains in for a can of beans, and then you're going to care then. Which just shows the complete hypocrisy of Esau. These people love to pretend that they care, but they don't care at all, man. Isaiah 3:2, the mighty man and the man of war, the judge and the prophet and the prudent and the ancient, the captain of 50 and the honorable man and the counselor and the cunning artificer and the eloquent orator. I will give children to be their princes, and babes shall rule over them. So these are the mighty men of Israel, of Jake, because Jake is a mighty people. And you're being ruled by these base people who don't even understand the difference between right and wrong. You can't even be spoken to and reasoned with. Even some of these wicked kings, when you read in the scriptures, when they realized they were doing wrong, they fasted, they put dirt on their heads, and they sought the Lord. These people, you can tell them they're wrong. They ain't going to turn back from their path. Because the Lord has really put it in their spirit to be a completely evil and wicked people. And the people shall be oppressed, every one by another, and every one by his neighbor. The child shall behave himself proudly against the ancient, and the base against the honorable. And when a man shall take hold of his brother of the house of his father, saying, thou hast clothing, be thou our ruler, and let this ruin be under thy hand. So basically, you take blame for everything that's going wrong. In that day shall he swear, saying, I will not be a healer, for in my house is neither bread nor clothing. Make me not a ruler of the people, for Jerusalem is ruined, and Judah is fallen, because their tongue and their doings are against the Lord, to provoke the eyes of his glory. And the brothers say this a lot. A lot of the stuff is against Judah, but this is the curses returning on these people. And these people don't want to be responsible for the things that they're doing. Just like I'm sure the decision that he made wasn't even him that made the decision. It came on down from, these other families, should I say, these so-called banking elites. And he's just a fall guy for it. So they're saying, oh, he's not going to turn and change his decision. He can't change the decision. The decision didn't really come from him. It came from the top down, and ultimately it came from the Lord. But these people are just basically scapegoats. And Jake want to be out there in a protest. You could see a few so-called black people in there, and they think these people are for them. Like anyone who's in the scriptures know at the end of the day, this was set up by the Lord. So I ain't going out there and protesting these people. Even certain times when I was in London, people trying to give me little leaflets and saying, oh, come protest. I ain't protesting nothing. I don't care. Even if it affects me, I don't care, because ultimately, I'm waiting for the Lord to come back. Now, it's hypocritical for these people to say they have an issue and not protest, because they're more carnal. So it just shows you that they believe in their system, but they're not willing to fight for their system. The way I fight is to basically try to follow the Lord and the laws to the best of my ability. I have no interest in this world, man. So in that sense, I'm not being hypocritical. But these people, they're just pure hypocrites, because they believe in the rule of Esau, but when it actually comes to holding these people accountable, a lot of these people are not. But a lot of these other groups of people, they're actually going to back up what they say. But it's going to be for no reason. You're going to go out there and you're going to get tear gassed by the police, and you're going to go home after your ass get whooped, and ain't nothing going to change. They're just going to, do a martial law move on you. Yo, this every single time I look at the news, this place is just completely done, man. All praises to the Most High Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, double honors to the elders and apostles of Jemas, who well, shalom, to the elect.